Mark Grayson, also known as Invincible, has quickly become one of the strongest beings in his universe before even being old enough to buy a drink. We have watched him stand tall and take an extraordinary amount of ass whoopings and beatdowns, but the man never quits, no matter how much damage he takes. A true hero in every sense of the word. And by the end of Season 4, we can say Mark finally reaches the level of someone like his dear old dad, Omni-Man. You can see it in the Conquest rematch. He takes everything Conquest throws at him, closes the distance, and forces a finish without any help. That's a fight that would have had Season 1 Mark turned into a Viltrumite shish kebab in 3 seconds flat. But then Big Daddy Thragg shows up, and the aura difference is immediate. The same Mark who just beat Conquest is suddenly back in a position where he's reacting, trying to create space, trying to stay alive instead of controlling what's happening. So the question isn't whether Mark is strong anymore, it's whether that kind of growth can actually take him all the way to Thragg's level, and if so, how long? Quick note before we break this down. This is based only on what we've seen in the show, up through the end of Season 4. No comic scaling, no future spoilers. And if you're not caught up to that point, there are major spoilers ahead. Also, Invincible isn't very clear-cut when it comes to power scaling. Outcomes shift depending on experience, intent, and how each fight plays out. This ain't Dragon Ball, so instead of treating this like a strict ranking, we're going off what actually happens in these fights, and what consistently carries over. When Big Daddy Thragg steps into a fight, the gap shows up right away. Mark and Omni-Man both land hits, clean ones, but nothing really changes. No stumble, no reset, no moment where Thragg is shown to take any damage at all. He just stands there menacingly, aura farming so hard the main character just runs away in fear. He just absorbs that shit and it keeps it moving, and when he decides to attack, it's immediate. There are moments where he closes distance so quickly that Omni-Man doesn't even have time to react. No guard, no counter, just impact. You see it clearly when Thragg lands a clean uppercut and sends Nolan's ass flying so far he ends up launched out into space, damn near headed straight back to Earth if the floating ring of his dead friends' bodies wasn't there to slow him down. That's not just strength, brother, that's something else entirely. That's speed, timing, and the wrath of the gods all working together. Because Omni-Man isn't exactly slow. We've already seen him blitz entire teams, fight multiple Viltrumites at once, and dominate opponents who can't keep up. And Thragg is still hitting him in ways he can't respond to. Even when both Mark and Omni-Man are in front of him, the structure of the fight never shifts. Thragg decides when exchanges happen, he decides how long they last. Everyone else just waits for their turn to get bitch slapped out the frame. What makes this even a conversation is how far Mark has already come. Go back to Season 1. Omni-Man drives him into a mountain hard enough to collapse the rock around his body, and before Mark can even recover, he's already getting hit again. He never gets a chance to reset. Later in that same fight, Omni-Man locks him in place and lets a train slam into them at full speed, forcing Mark to take the entire impact without being able to move. That's where he starts. Now compare that to Season 4. Mark is staying in fights against top-tier Viltrumites, taking damage that used to end him instantly, and tanking that shit with ease now. The clearest jump comes with Conquest. The first time they fight, Mark can land hits, but they don't slow Conquest down for most of the fight. He walks through them, smiling, then flips the fight completely simply by blowing a heart-shaped bubble out of his own blood to show Mark how much his friendship means to him. That fight only turns because Eve creates an opening and allows her death to finally convince Mark that he should probably think about not holding back anymore against the bald demigod with a fetish for violence. But the rematch is different. Mark takes just as much damage, if not more, but his approach changes. He doesn't try to disengage. He closes distance. He commits. He wraps Conquest up and forces the fight to stay close, even while taking damage, until it ends by Mark actually choking the life straight out of Conquest's wrinkled face. That's leaps and bounds ahead of where Mark started when he was getting his ass kicked all over the globe. Now he is the one taking the fight to his oppressors, and he is definitely not holding back anymore. The reason Mark can even close a gap like this comes down to how Viltrumites actually get stronger, and the show gives us a clear pattern. Their growth isn't just from training, it's tied directly to survival, specifically surviving extreme damage. When a Viltrumite is pushed to the brink and manages to recover, they don't just come back the same, they gain all the knowledge and experience of getting their ass kicked from before, which is why Mark is able to make ground up so quickly. They come back more durable, able to withstand more punishment than before. Nolan reinforces this idea throughout the series. Viltrumites are built for combat and making babies. You can track it with Mark. After Omni-Man, he's able to stay conscious longer and take more damage. After Anissa, his reactions improve. He processes speed and pressure better. And after Conquest, the jump is obvious. Now he's not just surviving that level of damage, he's functioning through it. He's staying in range, absorbing punishment, and still making decisions while the fight is happening. But the Conquest fight gives us the clearest example of how far this goes. There's a moment where Conquest literally breaks Mark's femur in half. At that point, the fight should be over. He can't stand properly. He can't generate power the way he needs to. For a moment, he's completely sidelined. That's the physical limit. But then Eve goes down, and everything shifts. Mark doesn't heal. He doesn't recover in the normal sense. He just overrides it. He forces himself back into the fight, keeps moving, keeps engaging, even though the damage hasn't gone anywhere. And from there, he manages to turn the fight and eventually kill Conquest. That moment shows two things happening at once. The Viltrumite side, he survives damage that should end the fight, and the human side, he has a reason to keep going past that point. That combination is what makes his growth different. But there's still a difference in how Mark wins fights compared to someone like Thragg. Mark wins through durability. He stays in the fight long enough for the other person to break. That's what happens with Conquest. He absorbs damage, refuses to disengage, and forces a finish. Thragg doesn't need to do that. He doesn't rely on outlasting his opponent. He controls the fight, so it never gets that chaotic. He manages distance, timing, and pressure in a way that minimizes risk. It also helps when the other person is basically incapable of causing harm to you. That difference matters. Durability keeps you in the fight, but control is what lets you dominate it before it even starts. And right now, Thragg has both the aura and the skills to earn the title of scariest fucking thing in the universe. Every other opponent Mark faces follows a pattern. They push him, force him to adapt, and eventually get overcome. Thragg doesn't follow that pattern because he simply doesn't even need a strategy. When Mark and Omni-Man fight him, there's no moment where he looks like he's being pushed to his limit. Fuck, there isn't a moment where he looks like he is even slightly trying until he watches his entire planet blow the fuck up right in his face, which only really succeeds in pissing him off. No shift in momentum, no point where control changes hands. Even Conquest, as dangerous as he is, still has moments where the fight turns against him. Thragg doesn't, and until Mark can create that kind of shift, he's not fully there yet. If Mark were to surpass him, it wouldn't happen all at once. It would come from the same pattern we've already seen. More fights that push him to his limits, forcing him to learn, adapt, and overcome. More situations where he has to stay in and take punishment instead of escaping. And continued commitment. No hesitation when it matters, and learning more and more with each encounter. We've already seen flashes of that. When Debbie is threatened and beaten, he stops holding back. When Eve gets sent to the Shadow Realm, he commits completely. When Oliver is in danger because of his own bullshit once again, that same instinct shows up again. That's the indomitable human spirit side of him. Viltrumites are built to survive. But Mark fights for something. He fights for love. And that gives him an edge that most of them don't have. So can Mark surpass Big Daddy Thragg? Based on how his growth works, it's possible, but right now there's still a clear gap. Thragg operates with a level of control and efficiency that Mark hasn't fully reached yet. Mark has come a long way, but he still appears light years away from Thragg's level. It may take several seasons or several training montages before Mark might be ready to step into the ring again without getting bitch slapped out the fight off the rip. And that's what makes this interesting going forward, because if Mark keeps surviving fights, he shouldn't survive. Eventually, that experience starts to match the power, and when that happens, the gap doesn't stay a gap for long. And real quick, thank you for watching. Whether you've been here for a while or you just found the channel, I appreciate you taking the time, the comments, the discussions, all of it. That's what makes these videos worth doing. We just passed 55 subs not that long ago, and every time we make an achievement like that, I want to celebrate it and express my gratitude for how it makes me feel. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all. And there's definitely more coming, so let me know what you want to see next.